All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Camera one.
Talent.
Ready, camera two.
And cue talent.
2, 1.
Roll for record.
Should we let people vote at 16, put polling places next to the Cinnabon at the mall, or even make not voting illegal, all to boost voter turnout? I'm John Phillips, and this is The Rundown. Joining us from Dallas, Texas is author and PJTV contributor Scott Ott. And right next to me is stand-up comic and PJTV contributor Stephen Kruiser. There's a county supervisor in San Francisco, John Avalos, who wants to make it so 16 and 17-year-olds can vote in elections here in California. There's movement in the California state legislature to allow 17-year-olds to vote in primaries if they'll be 18 by the time the general election rolls around. This, they think, will boost voter turnout. If you get people voting young, people will be more likely to vote when they get older. These people are out of their mind, aren't they?
It's not. It's the 16, 17-year-olds won't be voting of their own volition. What they think it's easier to control the minds of young people and get them to go there. I don't think 18-year-olds should vote. The only reason 18-year-olds vote is because the federal government wants to be able to tax them. So they have to go, okay, you're kind of an adult right now. And trust me, if they pass the 16-year-old voting stuff, they're going to start taxing 16-year-olds at some point.
And draft them. Don't forget that.
So I have a 16-year-old daughter. She's a very good student. She's really, really smart. She does not know enough about politics to even walk over to the polls with me, although I drag her every time so she can appreciate the process. But no, this is absolutely ludicrous to think that you need younger people. It's all about voter fraud. It's all about manipulating the voting population, and it's all that the left is focused on, and they need to be stopped dead in their tracks.
You know, Scott, your name has been on the ballot any number of times, so you know this is true. The group or age bracket with the lowest turnout is always the young people. People who are 18 to 30 don't vote by their own decision, by their own volition. Expanding the voter rolls to include even younger people than that is not going to affect the numbers at all.
Well, yeah, and it's something like 41% of young adults, the 18 to 24-year-olds, 41% of them are not registered to vote, or at least were not in 2008. Now, the myth here is that if we got everybody registered to vote, then turnout would spike. And all of a sudden, a lot of people, because they confuse causation with correlation. They think that people aren't voting because they're not registered. The reality is people aren't registered because they don't want to vote. Now, you know, you're right. My name was on the ballot, and I did a couple of things that most people don't get a chance to do. One is I used to stand at the county fair and try to induce people to register to vote for either party. Just get them to sign up to vote. I would spend 3 or 4 hour shifts asking everybody who came by, and a lot of it was lower socioeconomic groups, a lot of racial variety coming through there. I couldn't get anybody to register to vote. I think in the whole time I did that over several years, I may have had 2 or 3 people out of the thousands I tried to induce to register to sign up, because the reality is the people who want to vote are already signed up. The other factor that's happening here is in these inner city neighborhoods, I'll give you one for example, Allentown 10-1. It's a precinct in Allentown, Pennsylvania that has 174 registered Republicans and 1,236 registered Democrats. When I ran for county executive back in 2013, I got 30 votes. So I got 17% of the Republicans to vote for me out of that precinct. My opponent got 64 votes. He got 5% of the Democrats. The mayor, the guy who won the mayoral race in a city of 100,000 people, won with 5,845 votes. He got 6% of the vote in that precinct. It is absurd. It doesn't matter if you register people to vote. People have to want to vote.
Now, one of the reasons why I think you had such a hard time getting people to register is people don't want to go to jury duty, which of course is mandatory for all adults. If you're registered to vote, if you have a driver's license, they call you in for jury duty. And what kind of juries do we have? We get the OJ jury, we get the Robert Blake jury, at least in California, we get the Menendez brother jury. And this is why, Stephen Kruiser, I don't understand why so many people want everyone to vote. The president just gave a speech in Cleveland, Ohio, where he suggested that maybe it would be a good idea for us to pass a law like Australia and make it mandatory for people to vote. Here's what happens when you take people who aren't interested in the process and force them to vote. They become low information voters. You think we have low information voters right now? take a bunch of people that don't read the paper, take a bunch of people that don't understand the system, and then put them into the polling booth and let them decide who's going to be the leader of the free world. That would be a disaster. We'd end up with an electorate like the OJ jury.
And the reason that the president is behind that is because the presumption is, and probably correct, that the low information voters will mostly vote Democrat because they pluck at the heartstrings and they don't really offer anything logical or, you know, economically sound. And so it's going to be easier for them. But this idea that you can force people to vote, something to what Scott said too, is when people don't vote when they're registered, that is an expression as well. There are a lot of people who don't vote in various elections because they don't like any of the choices out there right now. I know it's happened a lot to the Republicans in recent years, and that is being able to say you're not going to vote is also an expression of free speech, an expression of voting rights. So you've got to look at that too. There's a lot of times voter apathy in this country isn't just because the populace is full of a bunch of apathetic idiots. It's also because our political system at the moment doesn't offer a lot of choices that stir a lot of people. I mean, I was in college when Ronald Reagan was president, and the college, somebody asked me, what was it like being in the college Republicans? I said, it was great then because Reagan was president. People were excited. People had a politician they liked. It's not like that anymore.
And Scott, let's be honest about this. Sometimes people vote, but they don't vote in the ballot booth. They vote with their feet. Think about this. In the city of Los Angeles here in California, we've lost between 2013 and 2015 almost 4/5 of our super rich people. That's people with a net worth of $30 million or more. They just left. They went some other place. Middle class people have been moving out of areas with bad school districts into areas with good school districts for years and years and years. They don't stick around and vote in the school board elections. Some of those elections get 8% turnout, like a recent local election that we just had. But they say, all right, I'm going to make sure I take care of this and give a vote of no confidence with my feet by leaving. Isn't that how most people are taking care of the process here?
Well, yeah, and that's the beauty. That's the design of the federalist system, that idea that if you don't like how things are in one state, you can move to another state. California is kind of funny because in California's original constitution back in, I believe, 1849, in order to vote, you had to be a white, male, 21-year-old citizen, 21 and up citizen, resident for 6 months. My favorite part of the Constitution is Article 2, Section 5, which starts out saying, no idiot or insane person shall have the privilege of being an elector. So I think the people who don't fit that category, in many cases, have moved out of the state. Now, in your most recent gubernatorial election in California, you had one of the lowest turnouts in a governor election ever. If we use the 1849 figures and said, we're just going to let white males over 21 vote in this election, and you took all the white males in California, you would have increased, if they all voted, you would have increased the number of people who voted in the gubernatorial election by 3 million voters. I think Kruiser is right. Nobody is showing up because nobody thinks it's a legitimate process. Nobody thinks there's anything that comes of it, and it's Tweedledee, Tweedledum.
And, you know, they don't get it. Here in California, Ben Allen, a state senator, along with Bob Hertzberg, another state senator, want to pass a law saying that you can vote at the mall. You can go to your local Cinnabon, and you can go ahead and cast a ballot there when you're getting your sample of pastry.
Yeah, the underlying contention in all of this is that it's too difficult to vote. There's this great myth that's been perpetuated by the Democrats, especially, that it's super hard to register to vote. It's one of the most arduous tasks you can undergo, especially if you're elderly, poor, a minority. Voting is so easy now compared to when I was first legal to vote. When I was first legal to vote, if you wanted an absentee ballot, you had to request one from the registrar. They would mail it to you. You had to have it mailed back in by a certain day. Now it's just at your house. You do it whenever you want. It's early. It's up to 30 days in advance, in some places 60 days in advance. There's early voting. If they make it any easier, people will just be able to think of a thought vote. But so the contention that this is a difficult thing to do is just complete bunk.
It's harder to order a margarita at El Torito than it is to vote.
Yes.
Because if you order a margarita, you have to show your driver's license. They card you.
Yes.
If you get booze at the grocery store, they have to take your driver's license. It doesn't matter if you're 902 years old and your name is Millie. They have to take your driver's license and they have to put it into the machine to let the grocery store know that they, in fact, check to make sure that you are of age to do it. When you show up and vote, you don't have to show a photo ID. You just have to say, hey, I'm John Doe. Where's my ballot?
I'll give you a classic example. The last 2 elections, I moved a few years ago, and they had a hard time getting my new address into the voter rolls properly. early. So I'd go to the polling place that I was supposed to be at this time, and they wouldn't have my name there yet. So they'd give me a provisional ballot. No ID, nothing. Just here's your provisional ballot that, oh, we're not going to count unless it's close and we need to. How do I know that they're not going to count it unless it's close and they need to? I just voted I just wandered in. No, I don't live in this neighborhood. No, I don't have ID, but let me vote anyway. But it's a provisional ballot. You can totally trust us. Yeah, because that's what I do with the government is trust.
And then if there's a close election, you're the guy that decides the election.
Yeah. Just wandering in off the street, asking for about, no, really, this is my name. I mean, at least when you go to your own polling place, you have to point to a name that's on the voter rolls. For the provisional ballots, I'm just here. Give me something.
All right, Scott, last question to you. Are you as happy as I am whenever an election takes place and there's very low turnout?
No, actually, I think that's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing for our republic. Now, I don't think the solution to that is to say force everybody to vote. That doesn't solve it because you've got a bunch of people who really don't care, who don't know, who are going out there and being compelled to vote. I think, my wife was just compelled by peer pressure at her job to fill out her basketball bracket, and she doesn't follow basketball. She hasn't watched a basketball game. I don't know if she's ever watched a college basketball game. But there was this thing on the app that you use on your phone that you can say, instead of going through the tedium of filling out the bracket, you can just choose the brackets as they were filled out by a cadre of sports writers or something like that. I think that's what's going to happen eventually. People will say, it won't just be the parties. It'll be, hey, I want the John Phillips picks, or you can get the Stephen Kruiser picks or whatever, and it'll just be an app on your phone.
I think that's a wonderful idea, provided I'm the only option.
Yeah, well, that's...
Maybe Kruiser. We'll let him in. All right, Scott Ott, you get the last word. Now that you know what we think, what do you think? Why aren't Americans voting, and should we do something about it? Tell us your opinion in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.